Jen, I'm so happy to see you.
I am so happy to see you too. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
It's my pleasure, and I'm glad you had the time in your busy schedule to spend this with me. So,
Absolutely. I've been getting better at time management, so I'm happy to be here.
yay. Let's start with telling folks who you are, what you do, and anything else you want to share at the top.
Okay, I am. Oh, and I
Kitty is
better put
making
my
an
cat
appearance.
cameos because there will probably be several. Um, I am Jennifer Plotzke, and I am an actress and a producer. I have been working the past several years in short films, series, and now I'm moving into feature films. And I've also been working in television.
Woohoo!
So hopefully that can continue.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So what kinds of specific things are you working on that you'd like folks to know about?
Well, currently I was working in short films for a long time, and I still have a few of those that I'm working on. I have one proof of concept that I'm shooting this coming weekend for a film that will be done down the road. And um yeah, now I've just sort of like tried to shift gears into larger projects with bigger budgets. Um, well, not necessarily a bigger budget, just a larger scale production.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, that's just sort of translated into me networking and meeting people that are working on feature films. So I have a couple that I'm producing, a couple that I'm acting in, and a couple where I'm doing a little bit of both.
Mhm.
A lot of them, I would say four of them are in the horror genre.
Mhm.
One is a thriller, one is a Christmas film,
Mhm.
and one is a an adventure rom-com.
Oh, that sounds intriguing.
Yeah, that's a brand new one that's just freshly in development. So we'll see where it
Nice.
goes. Yeah.
Sounds fun. So so you are a producer, you're an actor and a writer as well?
I am not a writer.
Not
In
a,
fact, the adventure rom-com film that I just mentioned actually came about because I had an idea based on an experience that I had. And I
Mhm.
thought, oh, this would be a great story. Like, let me write this. And it would be a great, like the lead character would be a great role for me, which,
Mhm.
as you know, a lot of us produce and write so that we can have a vehicle for ourselves to act.
Sure.
And so I started writing it. And on page 6, I realized that I'm not a writer. I was like, wait, right. I'm not a writer. I just got 6 pages in and now I don't know where to go. And
Yeah.
so I put it in a drawer for a while and I thought, you know what, one day when I find someone that sort of gets this idea that's a writer, we can collaborate. Didn't think about it for a long, I mean, maybe 10 years, second cat cameo, maybe 10 years. And then a very good writer friend of mine was looking to do something more in the comedic realm, romantic realm.
Mm.
And I said, you know what? I have this great idea.
Mm.
Are you interested? And I pitched him the idea. He loved it. And boom, we have a script. So that is where I think it's important to know what your strengths are and like not delve
Agreed.
into something where, I mean, look, we should all experiment, right? But I think that was my understanding of, okay, this is not my strong suit. And I'm surrounded by a lot of brilliant writer friends. So I'm like,
Yeah.
you do that and I'll do
Yes,
this.
yes, yes. That is an important thing and certainly worth exploring the different things and taking a stab at writing your story, whatever that is, and knowing when to ask for help from someone
Yeah.
who really knows what they're doing. And whether that's getting coaching to write it yourself or saying, here's the basic idea, could
Yeah.
you write something? Sort of like when we were doing the cartographer back during the AGR days of the 72-hour film challenge. And I asked Renee Stork to direct, I wanted to work with her.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what we were going to do, but I said I knew I wanted to work with her. And she had this idea, but she didn't write it. She got someone else to write it. Now, the
Yeah.
story didn't exactly go how she had in mind, but it still, it had enough
Yeah.
that she was willing to say, yes, I want to direct this story. So, yes.
And that's, I think that's what happens in the process, right? It's like
Yeah.
things that start out a certain way on the page and they evolve a lot
Yeah.
of times to something different, or what you shoot doesn't look exactly like how it looked on the page, whatever. And so I think that's a lot of times inevitable, but that's great. That's the evolution of something. And as long as everyone's open to that, then, and
Mm.
this screenplay that we just created, that's the thing. It's like he and I talked about a lot of different ideas and bounced ideas off each other. And so, I
Mm.
have a story by credit. I just don't have the writing credit, which I'm happy with. And
Yeah.
I was happy to sort of like, I trusted him enough to be like, whatever you want this to be. I don't have designs on what it needs to be, aside from these main points, like this can be what you want it to be as a writer. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Excellent.
But I think you're
So,
right. I think it's important to like a lot of times like that, when we were doing those film challenges, it's like that taught me a lot. And I think that doing things like that can open your eyes to something that you might want to do that you didn't think you could, or that you didn't think you wanted to, and vice versa. I know a lot of actors that have become different things because of that. Like, oh, I really want to, I'm working on this film, but I'm really interested in like this, what the cinematographer does. And then that
mm.
becomes their path. You never know.
Yeah, I thought it was a great playground, if you will, for all of us who had to, as part of the exercise of doing it in 72 hours, a lot of us filled a lot of different roles, and, wore a director's hat or an assistant director, or we were standing behind the cinematographer who knew what they were doing, please,
Yeah.
in most cases, and or held the boom or whatever, just
Yeah.
to kind of know what all the jobs are, because a lot of us as actors, we go into this just knowing our own craft and not really understanding all the ins and outs. So I think
Yeah.
it was a very useful exercise for all of us.
Could not agree more. Could not agree more. I think that's what makes you more of a well-rounded and more marketable person in the industry, is when you really have an understanding, as an actor, if you go to set, you have an understanding of the flow of things. Not
Yeah.
necessarily that you need to know everyone's job, but you need to understand what goes into what they do. And, so I think that's vital. And honestly, that's how I started producing. The first one that we did, the first one that I did, um, they were Nick was like, "Oh, can you produce this?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I don't know the first thing about what you just said."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, you'll learn it." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." And I did. I just learned it as we went, like you said, like we all did. And that it just turned out that I had a knack for it. And
Yeah.
so doing it.
I totally understand, because that's kind of what happened to me with my theater company.
Yeah.
I was just a kid who wanted to be on stage, and I had this mentor who was writing parts for me. And, there were, in the beginning, there were adults who were uh, getting them grant money and all that. But by doing it alongside them, I learned what they were doing and started doing it myself. It's like,
Yeah.
in order to be able to continue doing these shows, we have to raise money, and how do you do that? And what else do you have to do? The marketing and all
Yeah.
all the all the balls in the air that you have, and wearing multiple hats.
Yeah.
And it just evolved. And here I am, 40 years later. Oh.
Ah, I love that. I love it. But like you realized in doing it that,
Yeah.
well, how necessary it is to be able to do it, but also that you really like it, or
Yeah.
that you don't.
Well, there were parts I like and parts I don't,
Yeah,
obviously.
sure.
Um, but knowing that by doing what I do, I'm offering opportunities for other people to create work.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it feels amazing to do that.
It does feel amazing. And yeah, I love employing people. And I also love, watching these different teams sort of meld together, like
Yeah.
there are a lot of people that love to work together a lot, and I love to watch that process happen. But I also love to watch new people collaborate, and
Mm.
it's fascinating, to just be be a fly in the wall on the wall in those situations is real. You just learn so much, and it's really wonderful to watch creative minds at work.
Absolutely. And so I would ask you, like, between the producing end and the acting end, what parts of it are your favorite, and do you, at this point in your life, do you prefer one over the other, or are they both kind of equal?
No. I definitely prefer acting always, first and
Mm,
foremost. I don't mind producing. It just depends, there are a lot of different hats a producer can wear.
yep.
And I think that in terms of like line producing or, production management, those are tough jobs, and I've done them a lot. And
Mm,
while I am good at them, it's not, it's a lot. And because of wanting to act so much, and because, since I started out producing, like I said, like that was the vehicle to act more, the acting, it worked. And so the acting has kind of taken more of a front seat. So when you're a line producer or you're a production manager, there's so much work involved that
mm,
the acting kind of can't happen. So I can't do both. You know what I mean? Like I definitely can't do both of those in one project. I
mhm.
have done it, and it's kind of nightmarish.
Yeah.
Um, just because the stress of that, you feel like you're dropping balls, but like inevitably, like one is going to take over, and it's going to be producing because there's so much that goes into that. So then, you feel like your acting is suffering, which it probably is.
Hmm.
So that's why, since I prefer to act, I'm always going to go in that direction. And that's why line producing is just not my true love. I'll do it if it's necessary for the production to get it done.
Yeah.
Fine. But I do love being a producer and having more of a position that's like, overseeing or managing the line producer and production manager or something like that. I mean, not managing, working with, but sort of
Like an
overseeing.
executive producer
Yeah,
kind of idea.
more of that. I'm happy to do that because I do like, having a certain amount of control or being able to. I come from a hospitality background, and I think that's where it stems from. I think that it's this sort of global view, needing a global view of what's going on and being able to help and support in that sense, as opposed to the boots on the ground of it all.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, aside from all that, if it's one or the other, if it's acting or producing, and I'm offered both, I will always go with acting.
Yeah, I hear that. For folks who might not know, what's the difference between a line producer and a production manager?
It's just a different, it depends on, well, I would say that if you're working in indie film, there's no difference. If you're working on something that has a small budget, you're wearing all of the hats. But if you're line producing, you're you're handling things like crew hires, contracts, things like that. If you're managing the production, maybe you're focusing more on transportation, catering, equipment, things like that. I mean, those jobs go hand in hand in my mind.
Yes.
So there can definitely be overlap. And a lot of times in an indie production, maybe there's not enough room in a budget for both of those positions. So it'll fall onto one person, or it's one person plus the producer that's kind of helping out with that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's more of the nuts and bolts of the sort of day to day and working with, for example, the assistant director in terms of that person is creating schedules with, the camera crew. And so you're taking those schedules and that's informing what you do,
Yeah.
put into motion or put into place for the production.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's
It is
it's
a lot of work.
not for the faint of heart at all.
Yeah. So to shift gears then, if you could wave a magic wand and you could have everything you would love in your career, in your life, your health, um, your business, what would that look like in, say, a year's time? If a year is too short, make it 3, just so you can really like go out there. Just there were no barriers. You can have whatever you want. What would that look like for you?
I mean, it's definitely it's all acting. I love film and television. That's,
Mhm.
I grew up doing theater. I
Mhm.
love theater. It's not, it's something that I still want to do, but it's not something that is my main focus.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, I wanted to make movies. I wanted to make movies. And that grew into also wanting to work in television. And so when I grew up in Chicago, and when I left after school, I left Chicago and came here to move into film and TV. Um, and there are stepping stones to that. There are building blocks, like we talked about, like the film challenges, the indie film, all of that. And so that's all been building. And now I'm to the point where I'm looking forward to larger roles in those things, like larger roles in television, series regular, guest star, recurring. And I love a variety. I think that's part of the reason that I love working in this medium so much, is because it changes. You
Mm.
can work on something, you can work on a film for anywhere between a week and 5 weeks or whatever it is. And then you go and do something, you go and do a different one, or then you go and you do a couple of, in a perfect world, like you said, pie in the sky 3 years from
Yes.
now. Then you wrap that and then you go into a television role.
Yeah.
But that is, that's exactly what I would want it to look like. I would love to be doing, um, you know, principal roles in feature films, supporting roles. I love it. I love character roles. I love lead roles. I love it all. I just love being on set. um, and yeah, and peppering that with television. Of course, I'd love to do a series regular, and that is a different sort of time commitment than
Mhm.
just doing a couple of one-offs here and there. So, however, all of that were to balance out, give me all that.
Yeah. So I like to really, to really go there. I'm so happy and grateful now that, and speak it in the present tense as if it's already happened. And what does it feel like to have that, to be in the moment where you're sitting there having your morning coffee and thinking about the day that you're going to have and the life that you're living? What is that? What does that feel like? What does that do for you?
I think I don't, it's relief, honestly. I think for actors or for anyone working in this industry, like we all have a quote unquote side hustle. And
Mhm.
maybe it's not necessarily a side hustle, maybe acting is your side hustle and you have a different main focus.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But for me, for about 100 years, I worked in restaurants, and the mark for me that was pivotal for me was not having to do that anymore,
Yeah.
and waking up and going, okay, like this morning, I wake up and I have my coffee and I have, I will say that in this moment right now, my schedule has been crazy because all of these things are sort of happening at the same time, when that I didn't entirely plan for that. That's great though. I'm like so grateful to be that busy. So I was like, okay, we've got these 4 projects on the slate today, and I have to do this for this one, and that for that one. Oh, I just heard a siren. I'm sorry. But yeah, that I think is just sort of being able to sit back and be like, I have done the work to get myself to this point where I don't have to try to cram everything in before my shift at the restaurant, or
Yeah.
whatever that looks like for anyone else.
Hmm.
That type of a thing where you can just sit back and be like, you know what, I made this happen. I put all of these things in line and I worked really hard. And there were, times when you're working 14, 18-hour days just to be able to get to the point where you don't have to do that. Uh,
Mm.
that is, it's sort of feeling of a sigh of relief, and not like a I've made it kind of thing, but just that
Mhm.
sigh of relief where you have the space to be able to do what you want.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Because I think we're always going to continue to be like, okay, what's the next thing? Like you're always looking ahead.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, I don't know that there will ever be a time where I can, or anyone would just, well, me personally, I can only speak for myself, where I would just sit back and think like, all right, I'm done. I did it. You know, there will always be the next
Yeah,
thing.
yes, when you have a goal or a dream and you get to that, it's not one and done. There's always going to be
Right.
you're there, you're always growing. And I've said this pretty much in every interview is that feeling of the upward spiral. You don't want to be going the other way. You want to keep growing.
Right. Right. You're always, you know, there will always be some sort of new, there will be
You're
a new
moving the
thing.
needle. You're moving the
Yeah,
needle to the
exactly.
next thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you've reached this point. You're playing the series regular role that you dreamt of your whole life, or you're celebrating that feature film role that is getting a lot of buzz that's leading to the next thing. What's the best part about it?
Getting to do the work, I think, and working with people that you love.
Mm,
I, you know, I think you do enough of it that you tend to then surround yourself with, and not like we always get to pick who we're working with, but, you know, when you do have a hand in that, you get to choose your team. And so, you know, I think that's the greatest part of it. I love the collaborative aspect of of what we do. And so that's the great thing for me because, you know, you spend all of this time networking and creating these relationships and getting to live in that and create with those people. And you learn that way. You know, like I've learned so much from the people that I have worked with. I didn't go to film school. I didn't, you know, I went to theater school. I went to acting for theater school. And the fact that I've been able to learn so much really from the people that I've met is
yeah.
astonishing. And that's the beauty of it. You know, you don't do this alone. Like, why would you want to? So that's the greatest thing.
All right. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the team that becomes like a family. And you see
Yeah.
that with series that have been on for years, and when it finally ends, it's almost like a death, because
Yeah.
they to say
Right.
goodbye to people that you've been working with day after day for years.
Yeah. And you know, you look at people that are, you know, at the ultimate level in this industry that consistently work together. And there's
Mm,
a reason for that. And it makes sense. You know, it's like you develop a trust. It is like a family. You
yeah,
develop a trust, you know what you're going to get.
yeah,
And you know what everybody's capable of. And you can look at a project and be like, this person would be perfect for that. And you know, and it's like maybe you have this core, but there are also all of these other people and you bring them in and it sort of keeps shifting around like that. I love that.
yeah. And bringing in the new people for the different things that are happening in the different projects also infuses the core group with new energy. And it's
Exactly.
that way in theater too, like when you have an ensemble group, or even in community theater, you
Exactly.
see that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what, if anything, do you think would be slowing you down, standing in the way, or stopping you from everything that you would love to be happening?
Well, I mean, from a producing standpoint, I think that answer is always money.
Yeah.
um, but maybe not always, you know, it's like if you align yourself with the right people, you continue to build that network of people that are, you know, then you're moving into the realm of financing, which is its own thing. And that's you know, that's a thing that you kind of have to break into
Right.
or work up to.
Mhm.
So there's that, but also I think, you know, for the moment, I think a lot of times for people, it's just the opportunity. But
Mhm.
I also think that you have to create the opportunity. And if it's not presenting itself to you, then you have to figure out how to present yourself to it. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I did that the other day for a television role. I found out about this role through a third party, and I said, "Oh my God, like this is perfect for me." And so I said, "You know what? Let me just skip to the chase here and email my agent," which I don't normally do because I absolutely trust my reps and they are all incredible and really work hard to get me out there. But I thought, you know what, just in case this one slipped through the cracks, like let me give her a heads up. And so I did that and I felt really good about it because I was like, you know what, like this might have just for whatever reason, like not come to be. Let me put it in motion myself if I think it might not happen. So there is that. And I also think that, you know, if there's anything that's in the way, it is a process and it is, you know, there is a sort of build to it. So, you know, am I going to wake up tomorrow and book the lead role in a studio film? Not likely. But, you know, a year from now, 3 years from now, maybe that's different where I've created more, you know, I've sort of checked more of the boxes in between.
Mm.
So I think that's the thing. I think it's important to understand where you are and what you need to do to get to that next step. Um, and yeah, figure out how to get there.
Yeah. So no issues with fear of success or fear of failure, which is often what people say. For you, it's the process of the time that it takes to do what you have to do to meet the people you need to meet.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of here's the door that I want to go through, and it's in front of three other doors that I want to go through. So I have to go through this door first to get to those. I don't, I don't have that fear of success. I don't have the fear of, I don't know. I've never felt like that. I never had like a plan B. I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be this. I'll die trying, first of all. I have no problem in, you know, doing it until literally my last breath. But and who knows where I'll be at that point? Like maybe I won't be, you know, where I think I'll be, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
I will. But as long as I keep doing it, and as long as I keep, you know, I think it's about how, you know, what knowing what your true north is, and figuring
Mm.
out like just keeping that in your sight and thinking, okay, like these are the things I have to do to get there, and I just keep doing that.
Yeah. So when you come up with come up against a challenge, like I have to get through this door and be past this gatekeeper or whatever, um, what do you do for yourself to overcome the challenge? What's your thought process?
My
Might help
thought
some
process.
others who are watching you going, I want her life.
Oh, you know, honestly, a lot of times I think that we get caught up in like the big picture. And
Mhm.
for me personally, I know that is a thing. I look at, you know, it's essentially like looking as an aspiring actor to Hollywood and thinking this might as well be on the moon. Like how, you know, how do I get from here to there? And so I think it's about you know, almost reverse engineering that and figuring out what those things are in between
Yeah.
and starting there. I
Mm.
This is not a great example, but I'll use it as an example. I'm just starting to work on um, you know, figuring out how to get financing and investors for larger projects. And I
Mhm.
had to put together a a proposal for a film for a financer. And it was a lot of information that had to go into this. And I looked at this and I just thought, oh my God, this is going to take forever. I don't have all of this information. I don't know how I'm going to make this sound great. I don't know how I'm going to, you know, make this attractive to an investor. And I said,
Mm.
okay, okay, okay. And I put it off. I put it off. I put it off. And then I finally said, I cannot put this off any longer. I need this money. And so I just started with the first question.
Yeah.
And then I finished that and I said, okay. And by the time I knew it, I was down to, you know, the
Yeah.
last thing. And I was like, and it's wonderful. And it was the first time I did it. And I looked at it and I was very proud of it. And I was like, that's the thing. It sounds like, it's like, I would hate this if someone said this to me, but it's like, you start by starting. You
Yeah.
really to be like, you know, it's like when writers talk about like, just sit down and write anything. It doesn't matter if it's
Hmm.
relevant. You just sit down and you start writing something. And that is honestly how I approach stuff. Like just break it down. Stop thinking about the end result because you cannot get there from where you are. And so
Yes.
but there's a lot of things that need to go into place. And so focus on those things. That is how I approach stuff.
Yeah, and that's similar to how do you climb Mount Everest? You start by the first step. You just take the step and the next and the next. And sometimes by taking the first step, the next step appears.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
Sort of like, having foot lamps, in the dark. And that's it, they used back in the day in the desert, and there's
Yeah.
no lights in the desert. They had foot lamps and they couldn't see past the light on the first step. And
Right.
as you go, the steps appear, and as you're taking them, you get stronger doing it.
Yeah. It's like, you're absolutely right. That's such a great, it's like a motion light, right? Like a motion, you just step into the darkness and the light will come on.
Yeah, right, right. Certainly along the way, you can ask for help
Oh,
and
yeah.
ask questions. When you don't know, it's best to ask.
Oh, yeah. I do that all the time, even when I'm doubting. A lot of times it's like, I think like, oh, I'm not going to bother that person with this. I can figure this out on my own. And a lot of times that's the case. But other times I'm like, I just have to, hopefully you've built a network enough that you have people that you can go to for, anything from soup to nuts, and be like, I have no idea how to do this. Can you help?
Yeah. Going to someone who is the next step on the rung,
Yeah.
or someone who's been where you are, to say, I'd really love to pick your brain, and not being afraid to do that, because how did they learn it? They probably did the
Right.
same thing, right? And
Right.
maybe flattered to be asked,
Yeah.
right? To
Absolutely.
to be reaching down, to pull someone else up, to give back where they were given support, they can now give it. Um,
You're so right. I mean, look, everyone started somewhere. We all started in the same place, like everybody's had a different journey, but you know, Steven Spielberg didn't come out of the womb making movies. So
no,
everybody learned it,
and,
like, and
and
everyone was in that same spot at some point or another. And I firmly believe that a rising tide floats all boats. So,
yes,
if someone is looking to you for help, then
yeah.
you can help someone. Like, that's the thing. Like, we're all in this together. We all have there's enough room for everyone. So
Oh, I so agree with
yeah.
that. There's so much, um there's so much of a feeling that, especially when you get on social media, and it's the compare and despair, and there's never enough, and I'm not as good as that person. The competition that is perceived, especially when you're sitting, I mean, you're not sitting in an audition room anymore. You're doing everything from home, but
Right,
so you don't
right,
even know how many people are going up for the part that
right,
you're going for.
right.
But when there was, you're looking at, well, why do they want me when they have all these other, what's,
Oh gosh, that's
but
daunting.
there, but the mindset of the starving artist, is so detrimental to our health, you
Yes.
know, and the fear of never making it, or people saying, when are you going to get a real job? Like, that's like, it's not real work. And how many people are looking at their televisions and their movies and even commercials? Somebody had to do that job. It's a real job. People get paid to do it.
Right, exactly. I think, I agree. It's a hard world to live in. It's a hard world to live in general, but also our industry can be hard because it is always changing.
Mhm.
You really have to keep up. There's now we're so much of it is virtual, which was a whole shift for so many people that were just not into that.
Right.
Social media is, as you said, it's its own whole thing. And you fall into that. And you're right. Like, now we're not in audition rooms and we're not meeting people in person. And so you're left to your own devices thinking,
Yeah.
what is
Doing
going,
in your
it's like,
own
yeah,
stuff.
it's like being in a vacuum. Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
and then you look at social media and you think, you play the comparison game. And I'll say this, when social media first started, I kind of felt that way a lot. I felt
Mhm.
like, oh my God, look at this person. But then I thought to myself, okay, they're doing what I want to be doing. So how did they do it? Like you said before, like maybe, I can just ask someone that is working at a level I want to be working at.
Mhm.
Also, I would say back in the late 2000s, I had a person that I worked with in the restaurant, in a restaurant that was a miserable, soul-sucking experience. And she was also an actress, and she was wonderful and lovely. And she ended up leaving the restaurant and moving to LA. She said, I'm going to go to LA. I'm giving it a shot. I know I can do this. And I was like, wow. And this was like, before film challenges, before I had like no real footage even. And I
Mhm.
thought, oh my gosh, that's so bold. Like could never do that. And she
Mhm.
went there and she was working a lot, and she was working a lot, and booking co-stars and guest stars and all these things. And then finally she booked the title role in a sitcom, and which went on for several seasons, and she was lovely, Golden Globe winning, all of these things. And I thought, and the envy of that sort of
Mm.
started to creep in. And I was like, and then I thought, you know what? Wait a minute. Let me shift my perspective.
Yeah.
This proves to me that someone like me that is working in this crappy job that has these same ambitions can make it.
Yes.
And so I have always looked at her as a shining example of
Mm.
of that. And so when I see things
Possible.
like that, yeah, I see things like that, and because it's a perfect example of like I was saying before, like this might as well be on the moon. It
Yeah.
isn't. It's right
Yeah.
next to you. And
That's
so it's just about how you get there and what you put in motion for yourself. And so while I think that all of those things put together are difficult, like social media and everything. It's just about how you look at it. And if
perspective
you can
is,
keep that. I'm not saying that that's an easy task. I'm not saying that at all, but because I know a lot of people struggle with that. But if you can shift your mindset into that realm and think, okay, look at these people that are doing this. And now, especially because we can all make content. So, you know,
yeah.
I don't remember where I started, but
Well, I think we're coming back around to how important shifting the mindset from the starving artist to the thriving artist, and that you have more power within you than you realize.
yeah,
That you're in control of what you think and how you think about things, because thoughts become things. And how does that happen? How do things get created? Well, it starts with our thoughts. you
it
know
really does.
how JFK asked the premier scientists, how are we going to get to the moon by the end of the decade, or whatever, the end of whatever it is he said to him exactly, I forget, but the answer was this short sentence: the will to do it. The
That's
will
it.
to do it.
Yeah.
So everything's created twice, first in thought and then in form. The shirt we're wearing, the couch, behind you, the chair you're sitting in, it all had to be imagined first, which is why I start with, if you had a magic wand
Yeah.
to create anything for your life, what would that look like? Because if you don't know, it's like, if you don't have a destination, any path will get you there.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I've really learned that the past few years because I've gotten very much into writing goals down, writing them down.
Mhm.
And I never really did that. I just thought, I know what's in my mind. I want to be an actor. I want to be in movies. Like that is so broad,
It's vague, yeah.
and it's like you have to be specific about those steps because like you said, like thoughts become things. Like you have to think it, you have to envision it. And if you do that, then it's possible. Like anything, we were told that growing up.
Yeah.
If you can think it, you can do it. And
Yeah.
that's really, while I think when you're young, that sounds a little like, it's really,
Mhm.
and so yeah, for the longest time, I felt like I was just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall because I was just like, oh, I'll meet casting directors and I'll just take classes. And like, this person is a great person in the industry, and really with no focus or, plan for what I was doing or who I should be meeting. And so finally I was like, okay, you know what? Let's write some goals down. And the minute that I did that, it started working. And it to the point where it creeped me out. I was like, okay, 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 okay. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. And so ever since that moment, I have written them down. I keep like 6-month goals, 1-year goals, and 3-year goals, and they shift all the time. And, at 6 months, I reassess, blah, blah, blah. It is, it's essential. I
I
really,
think so.
for me, I can't, again, I can't speak for everyone, and maybe that doesn't work for people, but I recommend trying it if you
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah, you become a master manifester when you do
Yeah,
that. You know,
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
it's surprising. And if you notice what you're noticing when you write down a goal that isn't exactly specific and you left out some important thing, you go, man, I wish I had written down how much money I wanted to make.
100%. Yeah, because then you get there and you're like, oh, I did it. Oh,
Ah,
damn
yeah,
it,
I
damn
got this
it.
great opportunity and I'm
Yeah,
having so much fun doing it, but boy, it would have been great if I had been paid to do it.
yeah. Oh, I checked 4 out of the 5 boxes. Damn it.
So I would challenge you then, Jennifer, to say, when you say, I would love to be a series regular, or to have that role in a feature film, what does that look like? Is it
Yeah,
a period piece? Is it a drama? Is it a comedy? What kind of character are you playing? All of those details.
yeah,
And what's the annual salary you're making when you're doing it?
right.
And what does the rest of your life look like? It's not just your career, but how does that affect your health, your time
Mhm.
to do the things you love with your family and friends? And, or is it all consuming, because it could be, and then it's not fun.
That's interesting that you say that because I do think that frequently I think, okay, I'm working, working, working. And first of all, I think taking time for your life outside of what you do is
Essential.
you have to. Otherwise, why are you doing it? Otherwise, what experiences are you creating that, live your life, just live your life,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
also, I think working, 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 that can lead you into a place where you just continue working, working, working. And,
Mhm.
I have a husband to think about, and I have, there are other things, and I want to be able to, I hear these people say a lot of times, like, oh, I've just had no social life. I haven't seen my family in 2 years because I've been working so much. And I'm like, no,
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 that's
I'm not
like,
putting that, nothing comes before that. And so you're right, you have to manifest and plan for it to be a balance and not have it consume your life, because then you just wake up one day hating it anyway. So what's the point?
right, right. When it becomes sort of like, my daughter loves to bake. And I said, you're so good at this. Well, you could open up a little shop. She's like, no, then it wouldn't be fun. It would be work.
That's, my husband is a chef, and he also loves to bake, and he loves to, cook things at home outside of the realm of whatever um, cuisine he's working in with his job.
Hmm.
I'm always like, you should, you could do like a social media thing. You could open your own. He would love to open, like a cute little corner, like Italian grocery, right?
Uh-huh.
But that's like the writer and the producer, the writer versus the producer mentality. It's like, I would love it to be this, and the producer's going, but it can't be that because it has to be this. Like, this is what you can afford, kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, you have to think about running a restaurant or something to that effect is a completely different look from,
Yeah.
being the face of the business and the person doing the baking.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I think I said this with Jimmy too. Um, there's something to be said for harmony. Like your career can have its chance to shine in your life where you're really focused on, getting to this point or whatever, the steps that you need to take in it, and it's having its moment. But then there comes a time where you have to shift because something else has come up that's important, like your health. If
Yeah.
you don't have the harmony in your life to let that part of your life shine, where you're going to the gym, you're eating healthy, you're going to your doctor appointments, you're, getting out to do the hobbies and things that you enjoy, and your relationships aren't suffering,
Yeah.
because all of that is a part of a what I call a full spectrum life.
Yeah. I
And
totally,
letting each have its moment to shine.
yeah.
So when I'm encouraging people to get clear on the vision of what they would love, it includes the four quadrants. It's your health first, because you can't do
Mhm.
anything without that.
Nothing.
Your love and relationships, your vocation, whether that's for money or not, using
Mhm.
your creative gifts, and your time and money freedom.
Yeah.
So, that's it's a
Yeah.
balance.
That's the balance. And I think that that harmony is you really, that's part of the job is you have to be able to have that global view in order to realize there's that phrase of get rid of what's not serving you. And
Yeah.
that is this the first time I heard that, I was like, it like hit my core. I was like, there's so much in my life that is not that I'm doing for like, why am I doing this or why am I doing that? I know why
Mhm.
I'm doing this. I know why I'm doing that. Why are these things here? Like, you really need to get clarity on that, I think, because otherwise you just let so much sort of infiltrate and you just sort of keep spinning your wheels. And I think that figuring out that harmony is it's all in your court. You just have to look at things and honestly, today I had to send emails and start taking things off my plate because I was like, I am to the point where I'm going to start dropping the ball, which is not my thing. I do not, if I can't do something 100%, I'm not doing it. And so
Mhm.
I had to say that. I had to say, look, I can't, I'm reaching a point where I'm just not going to be able to serve this appropriately, properly, this project. And so I think it's a matter of being able to say no, being able to look at the slate of what you have in front of you and choose what to move forward with and what not to. And I
Yeah.
think that helps just having that mindset. And, at first, maybe it's difficult, but then you sort of like get into that motion of having a sort of innate understanding of what serves you and what doesn't, and what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and being
Mhm.
able to choose according to that, because I think that is what creates your harmony, because then you do choose your health. You
Yeah.
do, subconsciously, you just choose your health, you choose your relationships, and you say, I'm not doing that because this, my trip with my husband comes first, and I'm not letting anything interfere with that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's being very deliberate in what you choose to put on your plate.
Yeah. I I totally agree with that. So, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We said about an hour, so I want to give you a chance to tell folks about where they can find you as far as your acting or um, help with producing, or someone who might say, "Can I pick your brain for 15 minutes?" Or, where do I
Um,
find all the things that you've been in? Um, all of that.
so I have a website for my acting, which is jenniferplotzke.com. And also on my, people ask a lot of times where, how it is with indie films, a lot of times they go on the festival circuit and
Yes.
that's where they can be seen. So I do have quite a few films at the moment on the festival circuit. Um, so if you go to my Instagram, for example, you can see where and when everything is screening. And that my handle on Instagram is jenplotzke.com, just Jenn Plotzke. And yeah, and I have other clips of things that I've been working on out there.
Mhm.
And if on my Instagram, there is a link in my bio where you can book time to talk with me for a consultation, or you can also just reach out and email me if the consultation times don't work and you just have, maybe a one-off question or something like that. That's
Mm,
how you can find me there and reach out that way.
excellent.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure we got that in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm really excited to see how this adventure rom-com develops.
Really excited about that one. I'm really excited about that. That's one of those where, we learn in sort of in pitching projects, a lot of times in terms of financing, they're going to want to attach name roles, name actors to roles. And
Mhm.
so I'm not at that level yet. And so I'm hoping that whoever wants to pick this up will sort of at least consider me for the role.
All right, now I'm gonna give you a timeout here and say, be still Sylvester Stallone. He would not let anyone have Rocky unless he got to play the role.
So true, right? I need to, right. I need to
I,
stick.
I'm gonna encourage you. I'm putting on my coaching hat,
Thank
and
you.
I am gonna encourage you to imagine yourself as committed as Sylvester Stallone was about his story. I mean, he wrote that one, I guess. I don't know whether he had somebody write it with him, but
I don't know.
and to allow yourself to imagine a quantum leap. Like, why not? Why couldn't you have a quantum leap? You've done the work, you've
Yep.
opened the doors, you've done a lot by the seat of your pants learning, and
Yeah.
and and I to me, it seems like you're ready.
Thank you.
You're ready.
I do feel that way. And I feel you're right. Like, why not? Why not?
Why
And so
not you?
I just
Why not
have to
now?
keep in that mindset, keep visualizing and stand my ground.
Yes. And what would be the best part about that? Everything falling into place with the next project where you have some executive producing control. You're playing the leading role. You're working with a team you love. You're you're not overworked. You're
Yeah.
in your creative um hotspot,
Yeah.
you're what would be the best part about that?
I mean, everything you just said. I think it's that thing of A, having created the role,
Mm,
B, having put it in motion, whether it took 10 years or not, which it
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Well, it has so far. It could be another couple of years, who knows? But knowing that, you know, I'm here doing this thing that I have always had my sights on simply because I put it in motion. Well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. It was the inciting incident that I based the story on. However, still,
It's all part of the process.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and you have that multiple seven-figure income from the box office receipts, that you write into that contract.
That's I think that's the biggest thing is I love working in independent film, and it's hard, but we do it, and it can be done. But I think to be able to have the space and the freedom to work on something fully staffed, to have the time to spend to get it to what you want it to be, like, that's the dream. And maybe, look, there's always going to be problems, like even when you move up the ranks into like
Yeah.
very very high end um productions,
Mm.
that there's always going to be something. But sort of like you said, like having the space to work, and the not be overworked, and have it just be, I can trust you to do this so that I can focus on this. That's yeah.
Oh, well, I see it happening for you. And I can almost imagine the reflecting back on this conversation as you're standing there accepting an award.
Ah, 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 ah. Thank you. Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, Jennifer, and I know we're going to be seeing a lot more of you. And I certainly enjoy seeing all the work on social media, the results of your work being shared.
I really appreciate that. That really means a lot.
That's
Thank you.
we need to be unafraid to be seen and not concern ourselves with compare and despair. We need to shine the light for others.
I agree. And I think again, it's hopefully just shows people that, anyone can do this. And also look, our industry is built largely on advertising and word of mouth. And that's how we all, if you can have the courage to put yourself out there, I think it really makes a difference. I know a lot of people don't love it, and I understand that. But I
Yeah.
think that just, keep putting yourself out there, and the work will find you.
Yeah. Yay.
Yay.
Well, thanks so much for your time,
Thank you
and
so much.
I'm looking forward to more.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you having me. It's so wonderful to see you, and this was great to talk to you.
Likewise.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Okay.